Hello everyone, today I want to talk to you about the inside story behind the farce of the UK-China spy scandal being exposed. Also, for the first time ever, global new energy power generation has surpassed that of fossil fuels. Japanese media have reported that China's energy exports have actually overtaken those of the United States. The US and the UK are always shouting about catching Chinese spies, but in the end, it often turns into a farce. Recently, there was another case. On October 6th, the Financial Times published an article revealing details about a so-called Chinese spy case, and even more inside information has come out about the withdrawal of the charges. Last month, the authorities announced the withdrawal of so-called Chinese spy charges against two British men. On September 15th, the British prosecutor in charge of the case, Little, told the court that the evidence they had gathered simply did not meet the threshold for trial. He said, "We simply have no way to continue prosecuting." The presiding judge, Grubb, said he fully agreed with the prosecution's decision and ruled both men not guilty. According to media reports, the two British men previously accused of being Chinese spies are 30-year-old Christopher Cash and 30-year-old Bei Shuai. They were arrested by British law enforcement in March 2023, and a year later, in April 2024, they were formally charged. The prosecution alleges that between October 28, 2021 and February 3, 2023, they collected and provided information related to national security and interests for the Chinese government, violating the Official Secrets Act. According to information disclosed in court, the two individuals are accused in connection with work related to China. One of the defendants, Cash, previously served as the director of the China Research Group while working as a researcher in the UK Parliament and had contact with several Conservative Party MPs. Notably, this group is known for frequently making anti-China statements, and its reputation is quite notorious. The other defendant, Bei Shuai, once taught in China and has introduced various Chinese tourist attractions on social media platforms. China has made it clear that this so-called case of stealing British intelligence is completely fabricated and a malicious slander against China, which it firmly opposes. On September 15th, the London Central Criminal Court suspended the legal proceedings. Afterwards, outside the court, defendant Cash expressed his relief that justice had been served. He said that the 2 years since his arrest had been like a nightmare, and he hoped that people could learn lessons from this regrettable incident. The first key factor that led to the British government's failed prosecution was insufficient evidence. According to Director of Public Prosecutions Stephen Parkinson, when the decision to prosecute was initially made, there was sufficient evidence to support the charges, but later it was found that the evidence could not meet the standard required for prosecution. In documents submitted to the court, the Crown Prosecution Service explained the details of the case, stating that they had been working for several months to obtain relevant evidence. Although another government provided more witnesses and testimonies, none of the evidence indicated that the actions in question posed a threat to UK national security at the time they occurred. By the end of August this year, they realized it was impossible to obtain this type of evidence. Once this situation became clear, the case could no longer proceed. However, other UK officials told the Financial Times that the Crown Prosecution Service had only re-examined evidence already in their possession since 2023 and determined that it was not as substantial as initially thought. The second key factor leading to the failure to prosecute, according to a national security official, was that they would not testify in court claiming that China is an enemy. Yet this is precisely the legal element required under the UK's Official Secrets Act to prosecute the two individuals involved. According to reports, senior UK officials revealed that before the UK prosecution decided to withdraw the charges, the Prime Minister's National Security Advisor and the Foreign Office had major disagreements with the Home Office, which advocated for continuing with the case. Four officials said that the conflict between the two sides erupted during a meeting in September this year, which was attended by the Prime Minister's National Security Advisor, Powell, and Deputy National Security Advisor, Collins. The meeting was chaired by the Foreign Office's Permanent Under-Secretary Robbins and attended by Home Office officials, as well as various security advisors, including Powell. During the meeting, officials informed the Home Office that Security Advisor Collins would not be able to testify in court, stating that China is an adversary. According to the Financial Times, Collins had previously testified in another case prosecuted under the Official Secrets Act in the UK. At that time, the case involved Bulgarian citizens engaged in espionage activities for Russia. During the trial, Collins testified in court that individuals operating within the country on behalf of Russian intelligence agencies essentially posed a threat to the UK's security and interests. Based on this, the prosecution argued that Russia was an adversary. Subsequently, the Bulgarian citizens were convicted of engaging in espionage for Russia. According to the police, this is one of the biggest espionage cases in the UK in decades. Prosecution experts say that because the security advisor was unwilling to label China as an enemy in court, it is very likely that the Crown Prosecution Service decided to drop the charges. Some British officials told the media that the Sunak government, in order to maintain commercial and diplomatic relations with China, seriously interfered with investigations into all Chinese espionage activities. However, a spokesperson for the Cabinet Office denied this claim, saying that the evidence provided by the government had not changed in any substantial way and that the accusation against Powell of interfering with witness testimony was completely untrue. Therefore, the claim that the Prime Minister's office pressured for the charges to be dropped is also completely false. To sum up, first, the incident happened in 2023, during the Conservative Party's administration of the city government. At that time, the UK government was relatively pro-American and tough, especially regarding the so-called Chinese spies. It turns out that the political news outlet was simply catering to the government's preferences, labeling anyone who had contact with China as a spy. Of course, this was supported and encouraged by the city government at the time. However, if the Labour Party under Keir Starmer were in power and the government was less anti-China, they would have reviewed the evidence more seriously and realized that, at the time the alleged acts took place, China posed no threat to this country's national security. In that case, even the most basic premise of the accusation would not hold up. Secondly, the Labour parties in both the UK and Australia are also unwilling to go to court and forcibly claim that China is the enemy of the UK. The government might genuinely want to protect its commercial and diplomatic relations with China, or perhaps they believe that blindly following the US in targeting China would be detrimental to the UK, so they recommend being cautious about such cases, including prosecutions in so-called Chinese espionage cases. However, Home Office officials, having put in 2 years of effort for nothing, felt resentful and leaked information to the media to attack the Starmer government. Thirdly, these kinds of accusations against China by the West are highly political. As the relationship between China and the United Kingdom changes, espionage allegations can be dropped at any time without resolution. In addition, apart from coal, oil, and natural gas, China has created a new form of energy, solar power. On April 7th, the globally renowned energy think tank Ember released its latest report, stating that in the first half of this year, renewable energy surpassed coal for the first time, becoming the world's largest source of electricity. Compared to the same period last year, in the first 6 months of this year, global solar power generation increased by nearly 33%, meeting 83% of the world's electricity demand growth. Meanwhile, wind power generation grew by just over 7%. Together, these increases meant that, for the first time, renewable energy generation surpassed fossil fuels. Solar power has now been the world's largest source of new electricity for 3 consecutive years. Ember's senior electricity analyst, Motika, said that renewables surpassing coal for the first time is an important milestone, marking a critical turning point. Ember's report shows that the surge in renewable energy use in China and India made a huge contribution, while in contrast, the US and Europe remain more reliant on fossil fuels. The BBC also commented that this is a historic first. The BBC found that behind this headline news lies the complex reality of the global energy landscape. They noted that countries like China, especially China itself, are leading the development of clean energy, while wealthy nations, including the US and Europe, are now more dependent than ever on fossil fuel power generation that contributes to global warming. The BBC also emphasized that other data from Ember shows that no matter where in the world, China's absolute dominance in the clean energy industry remains unmatched. And Gauzen said that coal will still be the world's largest single energy source in 2024. This position has lasted for more than half a century, but by the end of this century, global renewable energy capacity may more than double. It is expected that at that time, 80% of the new clean energy capacity will come from solar power. Fatih Birol, executive director of the International Energy Agency, said that in the coming years, the growth of all renewable energy will be mainly driven by solar photovoltaics, but wind, hydropower, as well as bioenergy and geothermal energy will also make contributions. According to the BBC, China still holds a commanding lead in the growth of clean energy, with the newly added solar and wind power capacity exceeding the total of all other regions in the world. This has allowed the growth rate of China's renewable energy generation to surpass its own continuously increasing electricity demand and has helped reduce fossil fuel power generation by 2%. The BBC explained that currently, the majority of solar power generation, about 58%, is concentrated in just 10 countries. Many countries have experienced explosive growth thanks to China driving a significant reduction in the cost of solar energy. Since 1975, the price of solar energy has dropped by an astonishing 99.9%, meaning it now costs just 0.1% of what it did back then. Today, solar energy is so affordable that a country can develop a massive solar market within a single year, especially in regions where grid electricity is expensive and unstable. For example, in 2024, the solar panels imported by Pakistan can generate 17 gigawatts of electricity, which is double the amount from the previous year and equivalent to 1/3 of the country's current power generation capacity. In contrast, developed countries like the United States and those in Europe are showing the opposite trend. In the US, the growth in electricity demand has outpaced the growth of clean energy, which has led to an increased reliance on fossil fuels. This has resulted in coal power generation rising by as much as 17% in the first half of this year. Meanwhile, wind and hydropower in the European Union have performed weakly for several consecutive months, causing the EU's coal power generation to also increase by 14%. To sum up, firstly, the price drop of solar cells manufactured in China has been astonishing. The cost of solar power in China is 20 to 30% lower than that of coal power, making solar energy even more likely to become widespread in developing countries. This is a major contribution China has made to the world, but the US and the EU call it China's overcapacity. Secondly, the Japanese newspaper, the Japan Times, mentioned that China has a very high chance of winning this energy race against the US. The US prides itself on being a major energy exporter, and in the first half of this year alone, it sold $80 billion worth of oil and natural gas overseas. During the same period, China exported $120 billion worth of green energy technologies such as solar power, wind power, and electric vehicles. A similar situation already happened last year. Although the US set a record for oil exports last year, the export value of China's clean technology still exceeded that of US fossil energy exports by $30 billion. China created a new type of energy from scratch. In addition, when he took office, Biden mentioned that the Nobel Peace Prize had become a diplomatic battleground, and Trump really wanted to win the prize. He pressured the Nobel Committee to give him the prize, and as a result, many officials were so frightened that they wanted to call in sick. Welcome subscribers to tune in and watch my commentary.